How's it going, everyone? This is the George here, and today we are continuing the Hunger Games series of reviews with my favorite in the franchise, The Hunger Games: Catching Fire. This is the 2013 film directed by Francis Lawrence, and once again stars Jennifer Lawrence, Josh Hutcherson, Woody Harrelson, Elizabeth Banks, Liam Hemsworth, Lenny Kravitz, and Donald Sutherland, as well as some newcomers in Philip Seymour Hoffman. May he rest in peace because this movie also came out a few months before he passed away. Jeffrey Wright, and Sam Claflin, sorry if I mispronounced that name, and Jenna Malone. And in this movie, we are seeing how Katniss is dealing with winning the Hunger Games. And it just shows that even though you won and survived, as Haymitch said, in this movie, you never get off this train because you got to go on a victory tour, and a lot's just happening between people seeing her as this symbol of rebellion, and she just doesn't want to be that. She's having these meetings with President Snow that are very chilling, where he's threatening her and wants her to prove that her and Peeta are madly in love, and that's why she did what she did in the Hunger Games. The fact that she's also reminded that she's a mentor now, and she's going to be on this train for a while. And then we get the 75th Hunger Games, and they don't use these words, but I guess you can say they're the all-star version of Hunger Games. If you know what all-stars in reality shows are, basically, or in sports, it's basically you take the best or you take fan favorites, other victors, and you have them competing against one another. So in this case, because President Snow wants to kill Katniss, figures the best way to do it with because he's also thinking to himself, where he's told by the new games maker, hey, what about the other champions? Like, what if they start doing the same thing? Because at a certain point in the film, Haymitch and Peeta join Katniss in protecting Gale when he's being whipped publicly. And they basically decide, hey, let's kill all the tributes or victors because, hey, if one victor is doing it and two more are doing it, what's not to say other victors from other districts don't start rebelling or standing up against us? So Katniss and Peeta are once again thrusted into the Hunger Games and are competing against other victors who have way more experience and way more connections than they do. So I remember when this movie came out, there was a lot of hype around it. This was my most anticipated movie of 2013. This came out my junior year of high school. Everyone was talking about this movie. Even when we were going to preseason basketball games, some of us were talking about this movie, talking about how excited we were to see it. And this movie is definitely the best of the Hunger Games movies. This is my favorite. And this is a movie that I always thought was great. It's not like the first Hunger Games where like the more times I rewatched it, the more I loved it. I've always loved Catching Fire. But I've also grown to appreciate certain things more with this. For example, one noticeable thing that I never really noticed until I started reviewing movies and examining them is basically there's less shaky cam or a lack of shaky cam in this one. While I thought the shaky cam was handled very well in the previous film, you could definitely tell that with a new director and Francis Lawrence that he was able to do this without shaky cam and it worked out very well. The shots were amazing. The action also steps up a lot more. The new Hunger Games arena for the 75th Hunger Games looks incredible. They do something great and unique. It's like this clock thing where in certain places at a certain time something will happen. For example, lightning will strike a tree. In another instance, this death mist will come and try to kill people or poison competitors. And there's like feels like there's something different happening at each time. And again, this is where like we see like they're going all out because again they got all these victors that are competing against one another. And the thing is that I like about how the victors were handled in this one, and it's kind of brought up later on in the movie, is that it feels like at least half these victors have some kind of beef with the Capitol. It's not like one sided. If you like remember in the previous movie, like most of the tributes who are a lot younger, between the ages of 12 and 18, they want to win it. They're trying to suck up to the Capitol. While in here, some of them are voicing their frustrations. They got their own little protests going on. For example, the character of Joanna, played great by Jenna Malone. She basically just goes off on Caesar Flickerman's show to the Capitol. And later on in his show, all the victors are holding hands hands in solidarity after Peeta drops a bombshell that, well, even though it's not true, he basically lies and says, "Hey, Katniss is pregnant, and we got married in secret." I will say, like, it does feel like this movie, yeah, it takes longer to get to the Hunger Games than the previous movie, but honestly, I think the payoff works out so well because you're kind of seeing the build up to it. You're seeing how these districts are responding to what's been happening. Some of them are trying to protest. Some of them are trying to like show support for Katniss. They want Katniss to speak out more. And also, you're setting up the new game maker in Philip Seymour Hoffman's character Plutar Heavensby. And Philip Seymour Hoffman, as I said before, he passed away a few months after this movie came out. May he rest in peace. And this guy, he is a terrific actor. Whether it's a comedic role or a serious role, he is terrific in everything. As I said when I did my review of Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 back in the summer, his performance as the villain in Mission Impossible 3 is still my favorite villain performance in a Mission Impossible movie. And in this movie, his performance is once again brilliant. He's playing this new games maker who very ambitious. He's talking a lot with President Snow. You have no idea where this guy's leaning because President Snow, he wants to kill Katniss, but he's kind of saying, "Hey, why don't we just destroy her image? Let's let the people destroy her." It's like you're wondering, like, okay, he doesn't want Katniss to get killed, but it's like he doesn't care what happens to Katniss. And then we later find out in the movie, and by the way, this is full spoilers. I always forget to say this when I do older movie reviews. But if you haven't seen Hunger Games Catching Fire, we're delving into more spoilers. But if you have seen it, I'm going to get into them. Basically, we find out that he's working with others in some kind of rebellion. But even though I've seen this movie many times, his performance is so convincing that though I've seen it so many times, I'm still always wondering, like, is he really, or is he just like toying with Snow? And then we find out like whose side he's really on, which is the side of the rebellion who wants to start the revolution. And yeah, this movie is more so about the beginning of a rebellion and revolution than the actual Hunger Games. Uh, Jennifer Lawrence is once again great as Katniss. Josh Hutcherson improves a lot more as Peeta in this film. We get more of Liam Hemsworth as Gale. He does very good. Woody Harrelson as Haymitch, great as always. Elizabeth Banks as Effie Trinket, still great. Lenny Kravitz as Cinna, once again, great. And the newcomers, I already talked about Jenna Malone and Philip Seymour Hoffman. Jeffrey Wright as Beetee, great performance. He's one of the previous victors that forms an alliance with Katniss and Peeta. My favorite character in this movie that was introduced is Finnick, played by Sam Claflin. Sorry if I mispronounced that last name once again. And with Finnick, at first he comes across as this charming but a bit arrogant guy. But as we progress in the film and he's helping Katniss and Peeta, he's forming an alliance with them, you realize that he's not the arrogant, egotistic, like in shape guy that he seemed at first. The guy when he's like eating the sugar cubes before they're appearing in front of everyone. You find out that he has someone close to him named Annie that he's scared for her life. We see this around the time when Katniss thinks she's hearing Prim screaming. He's very close to his mentor who volunteers as tribute so that Annie doesn't compete in the games. And we kind of learn that there's more to him than just his looks and a bit of his personality. But yeah, he's very useful with that trident. He's great with it. Uh, Visually, the visuals look great as always. As I said, the action has improved a lot more. Costume designs and settings are still great as always. They do such a great job with these costumes. This movie definitely goes harder with the PG-13. I mean, as I said before earlier in the movie, like Gale's getting publicly whipped. We're trying to protect civilians from Capitol officers or peacekeepers. He's like we're seeing someone get shot at the beginning of the movie when they're acting out in defiance while Katniss and Peeta are on their victory tour. Like they really go deeper and make a darker movie and also explore how these characters are feeling. The love triangle aspect. This is not a Edward, Jacob, Bella situation. It doesn't even feel like a love triangle. It's basically Katniss. She cares for these two guys. These two guys care for her. They're not really competing against one another. But Katniss, like, because Katniss has other things going on right now, other priorities. She doesn't really have time to consider who she wants to be with. But all we know is that she cares about these two guys. These two guys care greatly about her. It feels genuine, but she hasn't decided, and there's more important things going on right now. But you can tell that she does care about both these guys. Guys, she's going out there risking her neck to make sure that Peeta survives the Hunger Games. She's really annoyed at Haymitch when Haymitch breaks his promise to keep Peeta alive, or to keep Peeta away from the hands of the Capitol. Well, she stands in between Gale and the guy that's attacking Gale in public. It just like the chemistry between these actors just works out so well, and you're more sold on this than anything in Twilight. That's why I hate the Twilight Hunger Games comparisons. It just doesn't really make sense. But overall, with Hunger Games Catching Fire, I'm not saying this is Empire Strikes Back, because Empire Strikes Back is a way better movie. It's one of the top 10 best movies, in my opinion, one of my top 10 favorite movies of all time, my opinion. But it does have that feeling that Empire Strikes Back kind of has, where now you see the big bad guys are striking back. They're doing what they can to fight back against the building rebellion. And this movie ends on a dire, sour note, because we find out about the rebellion. Peeta's at the hands of the Capitol along with Joanna. We find out that District 12 has been destroyed, even though Gale survived along with Katniss's mom and sister. And we see that close up of Katniss processing it, being upset, but then that her upset face turning into anger. The one thing I will say that kind of bugs me with the movie, and it's also kind of something with the book as well, is it feels like the end where they drop the bomb on Katniss, not on the Capitol, but I'm talking about the dropping the truth with Katniss about the rebellion and how everyone was doing this to save her, and she's going to be the Mockingjay. It just feels so quick. And because so much has happened and more news is being delivered right afterwards, that being Gale telling Katniss what happened to District 12, it just feels like a lot's just being taken in, and like there's not a lot of breathing room to process it. I don't know. It's just that always kind of bugged me at how quick the ending is. It's like everything else is so well pasted, but then this news is dropped, and it just feels like they kind of rushed it. But overall, with the Hunger Games Catching Fire, great performances, great action, great score, great setting, great costume. This movie, they really stepped it up with this movie. It's one of those times where the sequel really steps it up from the previous movie. I'm going to give the Hunger Games Catching Fire an A. I highly recommend you check out these movies, because the Hunger Games movies are a lot better than people give them credit for. So, what are your thoughts on the Hunger Games Catching Fire? Did you love it? Did you hate it? And what's your favorite Hunger Games movie? Like I said, mine is the Hunger Games Catching Fire. Let me know in the comments down below. And I want to thank you guys for watching. Please like and subscribe already if you haven't. Please share us with someone that loves the Hunger Game movies. And I hope to see you guys real soon. By the way, before I close it out, I will say that the Mockingjay review, parts 1 and 2, I think I'm going to do something similar that I did with Infinity War and Endgame last year, where I'm just going to do both movies in the same review, because I'm of the mindset that movie should not have been split into 2 parts, and I'll get into why when I review both of them. But until then, take care, everyone.